Thanks, Jenny. Thank you. Welcome all. My name is Marco. I'm with Plus Plus, based in San Francisco. I see a lot of new faces, so I just wanted to give you a little bit of a context. We started back in 2018. I was running Twitter University at the time, and I didn't quite know what I was doing. And I wanted to meet my peers. So I got together with a couple of friends, peers from Salesforce, LinkedIn, Autodesk, Dropbox at the time. And we basically said, hey, let's get together and let's compare notes. And so that started as a conference initially at LinkedIn in 2018. And we did it again in 2019, again as a full day event. In 2020, we had COVID, so we moved to this format, which is what we do today. It's a monthly roundtable, or about monthly roundtable. So around once a month, we get together and we do this on Zoom instead. So that's a little bit about TechnoCon. Now, we met Jenny a while back, and she presented one of the probably highest rated talks that we had in the last year or so. And when I think Jenny, I think experiences, and I think culture building. And your last workshop was on how to create experiences, and as opposed to just talking at us, you actually had us roll up our sleeves and experience the experience design, and I think that's what had it be one of the most remarkable talks of the year. So with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Jenny, and she's gonna take us for the ride. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Marco. Appreciate it. Enjoy being here with you all. So I'm going to share some slides and we're going to dive right in. All right. So this workshop is about the end of sit and listen conferences. I hope you're as excited about the end of that era as I am. I assume you have some skin in the game there if you are here at this event. So just generally want to invite 3 ways that you could be here. One is to be a consumer, which is kind of let the content passively wash over you for the next hour. The second is to be a critic, which is to be like, yes, this is going to work. Conferences are going to stay the same forever. Nothing's going to change. And 3, the third option to be here is as a contributor. And to be a contributor means to be fully focused as much as possible for you to be on camera, because we are going to go into breakouts. You're going to be connecting with fellow attendees here in this space, so that if we can see you, that just helps with the sense of connection and building trust and rapport while we're here. It also means bringing all of your life wisdom, all of the experience that you have, especially in the conference realm, but also your learner. So this curiosity that you might have to learn from other people, as well as the content that I'll be sharing here. So if you are willing to be a contributor for the next 60 minutes, can you give me a physical thumbs up in your screen with your actual hand? A physical thumbs up in your screen so I can see it. Yes, then I also know that you're hearing me and we're connecting. Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So we are contributors. We have made a commitment for the next little time together. So what's coming here today? We're going to have an action-packed hour of collaborative learning covering why conferences are broken and what we can do about it. We're going to talk about the 3 event models, which I'll share with you, the 3 keys to innovative conference design, which you can apply right away. And we're going to have a group brainstorm towards the end to redesign some of the traditional formats, so you'll get a chance to really get in there with each other. And you're going to connect to an inspiring community of learning leaders. After this session, I will send you a PDF of the slides. So if it helps you to take notes, great. But also know that you'll get all of these slides after to refer to. And at the end, I'm going to tell you about a very cool in-person meta day-long experience to go deeper on this content if that is of interest to you. So we're going to kick it off with a breakout. I love me a good breakout. So we're going to get in pairs, maybe trios, depending on how the numbers work out. I'm going to ask you to share your name, your experience with conferences, either as an organizer or an attendee or a speaker or a planner, however you're involved with conferences. And one cool thing that you've created, perhaps, or experienced at a conference that really worked. So while there is a lot that is broken and a lot that we want to change, I also want to kick us off on a positive note. Like, what's one really cool thing you've seen that really worked? And again, we're going to be in those breakout groups with pairs, possibly trios. And I'm going to ask you to share that with a friend. You're going to have about 2 minutes each, 4 minutes total. So I'm going to create your breakouts here right now. And as we do this, one of the things I saw, so many years ago, I was at a conference, kind of a conference festival put on by an organization called Mind Valley. And they do a lot of kind of transformational programming. And one of the things they did that I loved at the end was to, I don't know, this is being so weird, recreate. Okay, there we go. One of the things I love that they did at the end was they did karaoke, but they did karaoke with the whole group to Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. And they had, it's like, I'm just a little bit, and they had different parts of the audience doing, it was like a call and response. It was amazing. People were up on their feet going crazy. And I love that. And I ended up building it into the culture conference and an event that I ran a number of years ago. We did it with a different song, but I just loved it. And I thought it was so fun and creative. So that's just an example of one thing I've seen that I really liked. So again, you're going to have 4 minutes. Mostly we're in pairs. So get to know your partner, share a little bit about your perspective on conferences and one cool thing that you've seen or one cool thing that you've led or done in a conference context. So we'll see you back here in about 4 minutes. As you're coming back, I would love to see a few folks, if you want to pop into the chat. What's that cool thing you've seen or done at a conference? Because this is a great opportunity for us to learn from each other. So anything you're willing to pop into the chat about something you shared with your partner or they shared with you, about a cool thing you've seen or done at a conference, something new, something interesting, something unique, bespoke. One day instead of multiple days, 20-minute one-on-one spot coaching sessions, speed dating, a world cafe. Yes, cool thing depends a lot on size. Yeah. Constellations, getting tables of people talking to one another, right? These are like simple things sometimes, right? It doesn't have to be rocket science, but it is making some adjustments to the standard model. Cool icebreaker, nice, about Halloween costumes, tabletop conversation starters, great. So also as these are popping into the chat, for yourselves too, you can take note of like, oh, these are some cool ideas that you might think about integrating into the plans that you're making and what you are creating. So I want to give us a little bit of perspective on what is a conference and where does it come from? So the word conference comes from the Latin confere, meaning to bring together, with calm together and fair to carry. And the English word began appearing in the late 14th century, originally meaning a meeting of persons for discussion or the act of consulting together. In many ways, original conferences were often about were religious gatherings or kind of coming from that. And then eventually they went into more of an academic setting. So for our definition today, just a working definition, I'm not saying this is the definition of conferences, but the way that I've been thinking about it and the way that I want to invite us to interact today is to think about conferences as a larger event. So I put larger because some conferences are 50 to 100 people. It doesn't have to be thousands of people, right? But it's a larger event where there's multiple perspectives that are shared to support deep learning while building meaningful relationships. And I think this is really important, right? We want to do the deep learning. We want to walk away with new insights, but we also want to build meaningful relationships with the people who are there. And I think that's often a place that's missing in our current, those things happen by default on the line for lunch or, waiting for the bathroom. But how do we design for connection intentionally? So let's talk about for a minute, what's broken about conferences and what needs to change. Like, why are we here? Why did this topic get a lot of juice out of us? Because I think we're all frustrated with the current conference paradigm. So I'm going to ask you in a moment to crystallize your thoughts into what I call a primary shift. And this is one of the frameworks that I use in my own design work when I'm designing conferences or when I'm working with clients to help them design their trainings, programs, and events. It's a primary shift statement. And the primary shift statement is a simple, concise from to statement. And it's one sentence in this context that's going to encapsulate the main and most important change you think needs to occur in the current conference paradigm. So this is helping us articulate where are we now, what is the from, and where should we be going, what is the to. So the primary shift, it defines your roadmap to the destination. Not only what are your goals, but where are we starting from? What's happening in the here and now of conferences that needs to change? And what is the place that we want to see them end up sooner than later? So I'd like you right now, I'm just going to give you like a minute or so. So off the top of your head, don't worry about it being right or perfect. This is your perspective, not the perspective. I'd love you to draft a primary shift statement for conferences and drop it in the chat. So one statement in a from to format. So conferences need to shift from X to X. Shorter and simpler is better. So I'm going to invite you now to just draft that and drop it into the chat. It might be just one word. Conferences need to shift from this to that, or it could be a phrase or a longer statement, but do your best to be consistent. I love it. I already see them pouring in. This did not take a lot of thinking on your parts. This is wonderful. I love seeing these. Yes, from surface to depth, from singular to collective, from information to building community, listening to ideas to applying skills, from standard to creative, from boring and predictable to delightfully awe-inspiring. From Noreen, yes, I love these. So great. From overwhelming to meaningful connections, from sit on the sidelines to co-create, from cold to warm. I love that. From same speakers all the time to new voices, from one to all, from talking to community building, lectures to moments worth a picture, transactional trade shows to team building pop-ups. From serious to hilarious. Thank you, Alan. Fun is important. I'm a big proponent of like learning should be fun, right? Like let's make learning fun again. It doesn't have to be boring. These conferences and events, they don't have to be boring. Thank you. Keep thanks, Mark, from Sit and Listen to Run by Jenny, and all of you. So keep those coming as you are inspired. So I wrote a handful of shifts ahead of time to share, and I imagine that a lot of them would dovetail with what you all shared. So from networking, which in my mind is kind of a 4-letter word, from networking to community building, from boring to engaging, from informational to transformational, from planned to emergent, right? How do we create space for new things to happen? From content to connection, from presentational to experiential, from events to experiences, from speaker-centric to attendee-centric, and from sage on the stage to guide on the side, right? How do we really empower our audiences, or even shift from stage on the stage to the wisdom is in the room? So these are some other shifts we might think about creating. So why does everyone and their mother seem to have a conference, right? Like all these organizations and all these people have conferences. Why is that? And I think in many ways, it's because the standard format is plug and play, right? We kind of know what it is. It leaves little risk for the organizer, and it creates low expectations on behalf of attendees. We know what we're getting. We've done this 1,000 times. So people are willing to accept kind of a low model, so to speak. So I want to share with you 3 event models that we could consider, and it might help to crystallize kind of what's happening and why. These are 3 event models that I made up, basically just looking at what I've seen out there and tried to put a name to the models that I see. So the first one is what I call the Flatline model. And this is very much a traditional conference. It will look very familiar to you, right? So there's a beginning and middle and an end. Nothing changes that line, goes straight across. It's chock full of content. Speaker, speaker, panel, speaker, lunch, speaker, wow, fireside chat, closing speaker. And I should put on there a happy hour. Maybe there's an AMA, maybe there's a breakout workshop, but that's kind of what you've got. There's no community building outside of the happy hour. There's no integration. There's no debriefing. There might not be any moments of like fun in there. And unfortunately, the flatline model, it leaves people feeling bored, disengaged, and overwhelmed, right? So how many times do people get on planes, they get childcare, they make all these arrangements, spend all this money to sit in the back of a room and surf the web looking at panda videos instead of learning something meaningful from the people on stage or the people that they're sitting next to? So that's flatline. Second one is chaos model. Chaos model is unintentional. Nobody tries to create a chaos model, but oftentimes there's multiple competing factors or someone, I often find chaos model is with very well-intentioned but ambitious designers and organizers who want to just cram as much in there as possible. And it leaves people feeling just confused and frustrated. And I went to a conference in LA where it was like, in this venue that was very confusing and hard to navigate. There was very poor signage. There was events and things starting at way different times. You're like, where am I going? There was no rhythm to it. And then they had way too many choices at any given time for too few people. So it just dispersed everyone. So that's some examples of what a chaos model might look like. It just like doesn't make sense. It's haphazard. There's no central theme or organizing principle. So that's chaos. Now, here's the third model. This is the one I want to propose for us, and it's the one that I've developed over the past 20 years. I have a background and a degree in theater. So it's taking the dramatic arc from theater and storytelling and applying it to an event's context. So this proprietary framework, I've trained thousands of people who are using this around the world. So you'll notice that it looks like an arc or a mountain or a triangle. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. You'll also notice that that middle is pushed slightly over. So that's kind of 3/4 of the way through rather than directly in the middle. So on the way between the beginning, middle, and end, that middle piece, that top point, is what we call the pinnacle. The pinnacle is the climax. It is the denouement. In a story, it's when there's like a birth or a death, or the murderer is revealed, or the couple runs off and gets, married in secret. It's like the big thing we've all been waiting for. And the pinnacle in an event's context is where your promise is realized in an experience. So oftentimes people want to make their pinnacle a keynote speaker. And a keynote speaker has great ideas and concepts to share, but we want something in our pinnacle that is experiential. So it might be the keynote speaker gives you an idea, but then there's some kind of an immediate application that helps you experience the thing the conference is telling you all about, what it's going to do for you. So on the way up to the pinnacle, you've got your guidelines, community building in the beginning, kind of what are the mindsets we're asking people to try on for this day? What is the culture that we're creating? And on the back end, you have some integration, right? So you'll often see at the end of a conference, again, another big keynote speaker, they're trying to hold as a carrot to keep you there for the whole day. But actually what you want to do at the end of a conference is not create more content, but help people digest the content that they receive so that they have really powerful takeaways, integration, stay connected with the community. So this is the model that I use to design all of my events. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to do that. So I want to give you, that was the 3 models. I want to give you now the 3 keys to innovative conference design. And this is some new content that I'm sharing today for the first time. So excited to share this all with you. So there's 3 aspects here that I think are really important. The first one is the macro, and that's what we were just talking about with our dramatic arc. It is the narrative storyline. How are you guiding people through your event from the beginning, middle to an end? What story are you telling? And how do you make your participants the main character, not the people on stage, but the people in the seats? Then you have the micro. The micro is these interstitial moments. They're the moments in between. They're the connection moments. They're the culture building moments. They're the energizing moments, and they're the debriefing moments. So it's not your main content, but all the elements that link your content together. And the third one is now your medium. It's your main content. It's those main content formats. It's the panels, it's the breakouts, it's the AMAs, it's the fireside chats, or the unconference, whatever it is, the fish bowls, whatever kind of format that you're using, that is the medium. That is the medium through which you are delivering the content. So we're going to look at these 3 aspects and hopefully give you some more concrete ideas on what you can do. And then we'll do a brainstorm towards the end to innovate some of those content formats. So stick around for that. So let's talk about macro. Macro is where you're creating a narrative storyline that creates a cohesive journey for the group. It's how you place the elements in a sequential order that tells a story instead of back-to-back content in a random checklist, right? So oftentimes there's like breakouts, or you're not really sure. You have speakers who are maybe sharing conflicting information, or you're not really sure like why this day has unfolded in the way that it is. So we want to be thinking really strategically about how are we placing our content? How is each element teeing up the next element? What is most foundational and primary for people to know at the beginning of the day versus what's more advanced, kind of that they're going to need more time to ease their way into before that content will be accessible or meaningful. So thinking about this hero's journey of sorts, right? So I wanted to give you a specific example. This is the Culture Conference, which is an event that I ran in 2017 and 18, 250 people, invite only, for organizational leaders about organizational culture from the inside out. So I think of the conference as part personal development and part professional development. So we're doing both and. So I'm going to kind of talk you through it's a 2-day event. So from the bottom, I did this from micro to macro. So I started thinking about the eye of the self. So you'll see that highlighted in yellow. So this first round of breakouts. So I'll say between each of the bold sections, I had a speaker at the beginning that would tee up these concepts. So I had a speaker from the main stage, and then we went into a round of breakouts that I called leading from the inside out. And these breakouts were about, self-reflection, energy management for yourself, maybe doing some meditation or leadership development, right? So that was really focusing on the eye of the self, the leader, and how we can be models for what we're trying to lead in our organizations. Then I'm going to skip up to building high performance teams. This was about the we of the team. Now we're getting into bigger groups. So in high performance teams, we're talking about communication and feedback, collaboration practices. From there, we go up to the top. This was the pinnacle. This was the morning of day 2. So now we're in the second day. So the morning of day 2, your pinnacle is usually about 3/4 of the way through the event. So for a 2-day conference for me, that was the morning of day 2. We did a round of breakouts on cultivating communities of belonging. And this was when diversity and inclusion and equity were things that we talked about and cared about and were important, and they're still important. But this is when this content was really coming to life and was in the forefront. And this was in the greater we of the company. So now we're talking about the community as a whole. And so we were talking about how do we have these places where people feel like they have a sense of belonging, or they have opportunity. And the feedback I got from that session was that conversations were happening in the front of the room that usually happen in whispers in the back of the room. So that was very powerful experience, I think, for everyone there. And then the last session was the evolving as an organization. So that's when we talked about the it of the organization, the entity as a whole, separate from the people. What are the meta structures there? And then in between here, you'll see these team huddles, 2 team huddles. Team huddles were groups of about 10 people that we placed together intentionally, and they got together twice, once on day 1, once on day 2, to get to know each other, to talk more about what they were learning, and to have time to reflect and process everything that was happening at the conference. So some of you were involved in the culture conference back in the day. So this is just a model, again, thinking about what is the story that we're telling? What is the arc that we're taking people through? All right, moving on to micro. Micro is designing the interstitial moments between the content that ignites connection and community. So this is a really important aspect, right? These are all those in-between moments between your content. How do we ignite connection and community, get people to know each other? How do we help them learn with learning retention and integration, right? So it's not in one ear and out the other, but it actually lands in a deeper way. And how do we keep energy high? Because if people are tired or exhausted or just burnt out, like they're not going to be receiving the benefit of being in the room. So it's up to us to have those energetic interventions as well. So we're going to talk about these 3 aspects: connection, learning retention, and energy management, as I call it. So I often like to say connection is your most effective engagement strategy. And that's because it creates social accountability, especially in a virtual setting. Many of us are doing in-person conferences. There's still lots of summits happening online. So anytime you have a moment for connection, it's going to re-energize and re-engage your audience. I also like to say that connection catalyzes content. So just a little bit of connection creates the psychological safety for your content to have impact. People are awake, they're alive, they're alert, they're willing to be human, they're willing to admit they don't know something, they're more open. So then when you deliver content after like a moment of connection, people are usually much more receptive to it. So I like to say you want to connect early and often. They don't have to be frequent moments, just touch points. So some ideal connection opportunities would be at the very beginning of your event to set the tone that relationships are important. I recommend you do this within the first 10 or 15 minutes. If you wait after that, you've kind of lost the opportunity to shift people from being passive observers to active participants. And you really want to get them in that flow. Like, we're going to be connecting. You notice in this session, we went to breakouts right away, right? So you want to do that right in the beginning. You can connect people after a significant segment of content, a debrief. We'll talk about that more. After a break or a meal to refocus. When the energy dips, to revitalize your group. And I love definitely moments of connection before you close to reflect on the experience. That, again, can be part of that learning integration opportunity. And the importance of the debrief. So that was about connection. Let's talk about debriefing and how that supports learning, right? So the debrief helps us to make meaning of the activity or content and to apply what we learned. It's a way of making the group journey relevant to each individual. So we talked about that arc, how we take people through that experience or that journey. But when we debrief, when we ask people, what was meaningful to you? What follow-up questions do you have? How is that going to change the way you approach X topic? We make that group journey relevant to each person. Like, what does that mean for me and what am I going to do with it? So really important to pause and debrief. So my big suggestion, if you are willing to take it, is as you're programming your conference, after every talk or every significant segment of content, just have people turn to a partner and designate 3 to 5 minutes to just share. What did you get out of that? Like, what was meaningful in that for you? What are you taking away from that talk or that concept or this conversation? And that really helps when you give people, you pause and you give people that time to not only think, but articulate. And the great thing there too, you have a pair share, and now your debrief is that marriage of content and connection. So you kind of are hitting two birds with one stone at that point. So it's a really nice, that's not the best metaphor for this, but anyway, it's a really good way to have both content and connection in a debrief. So I would say do that in between all your segments as much as possible. Then you want to do a bigger debrief segment at the end of the day, so people are able to, again, articulate for themselves what mattered and what am I going to do now based on what I learned here. Energy management. This is the third piece of those interstitial moments. Energy management is so important because if people have no energy, they have no attention, and then your content has no impact. So people think they can just keep cramming content at an audience. And it's like, there's just a point at which people are full and then it just spills over and it doesn't go anywhere. Right. And so if people are droopy, we can't make an impact. We can't go there. So we have to be proactive. There's the studies that say the worst of the worst is that as adults now, we have an average attention span of 8 seconds. So it's really, really, really bad, right? So you put an hour-long keynote that's like a talk at you, this is not going to work, right? People are not going to pay attention. It's not their fault. So one of the things I like to think about is the 5-minute rule. So if you're coaching your speakers, working with speakers, how can they add just a small element of engagement every 5 minutes to just keep the audience with you, essentially? So with the energy management, there's 2 types of energizers for when energy dips, right? One, I like to think of as stimulating. This is where you're pumping up the energy and like really moving things. And the other is restorative, where you're nourishing and grounding. So would love to hear from you all, whether you would like to drop it in the chat or even come off of mute. What are kind of energizers that you like to use or that you've seen, whether it's stimulating or restorative, that work to get people re-engaged and energized in the moment? Ideas. Showing clips from Ted Lasso. I love that. That's great. I heard the next season's coming out. Raise your hand if questions. Stretch time, freeze dance, play music and dance. Yes. Round of applause if. I love that. That's like very accessible, right? People know how to applaud. They're doing something, right? I ask you to do the thumbs up in the beginning of the session. Stretch break and kooky music. I love it. Quick meditation for focus. Yeah. So that would be more of our restorative and nourishing, sometimes leading some breathing exercises, a visualization, a meditation, right? That's restorative. Sometimes people need, especially in a big conference environment, to go inside, right? It's like, oh, there's so much external energy coming out. Rhythm activities, walk and move during a pair share, right? So it's like find somebody and move around. Yeah. And snack and coffee time, right? Bio breaks. Those are also important things that we want to think about adding into our schedule. So what I like to do, so at this event that I have coming up, I'll tell you about at the end, I'm bringing in I do a lot of dance, and I'm bringing in my Zumba teacher to come do like one song with everybody, right? So again, how can you make it fun? How can you make it playful? How can you help people get their blood pumping so they're not just like sitting there passively all day? So we talked a little bit about energizers. Anything else that you might like to add here? Your favorite ways to connect or engage a group. So when we think about adding, creating debriefs or creating connection opportunities, anything else that comes to mind that you like doing to connect or engage a group? Also happy to hear any voices if you want to come off of chat. Things that you like to do to connect and engage your groups. How do you keep people focused? How do you keep them receptive? How do you help them build community? Ooh, I like that. Nice. Having a moderator interact with the audience in real time as the fireside chat is happening. Art or activities that make people laugh. One of the things, the saying that I love that you may have heard is laughter is the shortest distance between two people, right? So how do you just like disarm people with that fun and that laughter? After I introduce myself and my name, ask the crowd to shout their names all at once and then reply, nice to meet you. I love that. That's a great trick. Food for sure, the watering hole of the kitchen, polling and quizzes, especially at virtual events. That's a great way to keep people engaged and just do that micro moment. Use activities from Plan Purpose. Yes, this is my library of 80 games that you can access online. Thank you, Nilu. Yes, word clouds, call and response, fun rhythm and sound exercises. Find 3 things in common with and without talking. Voice, nice. Setting up tables with themes to gather people who share common interests. Beautiful. Great. Feel free to keep those coming. Here we go. As we go on, I'm just going to take us into our last segment here. So we kind of went through our macro, we went through that storyline, we went through our micro. What are these little interstitial moments that you might add some color and some culture? And that's, I think, one thing to just say back to Marco's point in the beginning, these little moments, these little touches in between are where you add color and culture. I'll give you one more example from the culture conference, especially in this energy management segment. I decided to have the audience give each presenter a standing ovation, like a raucous standing ovation at the beginning of their talk or presentation. So we're taking something that we know, we're flipping it upside down, like we're just changing the order, but that one change made a huge difference. And my invitation to the audience was, we're celebrating this person, all their life experience, everything they have to share. We're already a yes to you and whatever you're going to offer us. So it's not that they have to earn the standing ovation at the end, but we're giving it to them freely at the beginning. And it gets everybody standing up and out of their chairs. So like say I would have talks that went no more than 15 or 20 minutes. So at least every 15 or 20 minutes, you get people standing up, clapping, cheering, shouting. It was beautiful. And then speakers came on feeling so celebrated. So it's again, just an example of these small things you can do. Didn't take very long, takes like 30 seconds, right? But all of a sudden it shifted the culture of the whole space. All right, last key is our medium. Medium is we're designing the main content formats to optimize for engagement and interactivity. So this is, again, looking at your very standard formats, right? Our keynotes, our panels, our fireside chats. I'm not saying that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not saying that keynotes, panels, and fireside chats are garbage and we should never see them again in any conference. What I am saying is I think these formats need an update. Like we need to just refresh them. We already saw that in the chat, right? Like, oh, having a moderator for a fireside chat that's engaging with the audience, right? So how do we make these small tweaks that can bring some of these outdated formats up to speed with our modern age and the needs of our audiences? So I'm bringing in this quote from Marshall McLuhan, who is a Canadian communication theorist, and he said the medium is the message, right? So this medium through which we choose to communicate holds as much, if not more value than the message itself. So if we're doing an interactive workshop on Zoom meeting where we can't see each other's picture, where we can't go into breakouts, like there's some discord in what we're saying it's about and how we're delivering the content. So if we really want immersive experiences that are interactive and engaging, we need to find ways of delivering our content that is integrated with those principles. So with that being said, I'm going to send you all into breakouts in a few moments. And we're going to be talking about some of these traditional formats. And I am pretty good on time. So I'm going to give you the full 10 minutes. So I'm going to put you in groups of 3 or 4. In your groups of 3 or 4, you're going to have 10 full minutes to choose one of the traditional formats. So I'm going to ask you to either choose keynotes, so that's like speakers, panels where you'd have a number of people talking about a specific topic on stage, or a fireside chat where usually you have a moderator or interviewer kind of having a intimate conversation with a presenter on stage while the audience is watching. So everybody clear on those 3 formats, just generally what we're talking about there. I think that's like pretty standard. Great. So those are the 3 formats. Your group is going to choose one to focus on. So maybe take just a minute to do that. I would suggest don't spend too much time there. And then use the majority of the time to come up with at least 5 ideas that answer the question, how might we update this format to be more interactive and engaging? So how might you think about revising, refreshing, re-envisioning these formats? We're not necessarily throwing them away, but we're saying, how could we energize them in a way? How could we tweak it just a little bit? Or what format would better suit this purpose that we would put in its place, right? You could maybe go in a different direction too. If you're like, we're going to throw this out the window, we're going to do this thing instead. And this is why we feel it's important. So those are my invitations to you. I'm going to ask you to be ready. Just have one note taker in your group and cut and paste your ideas into the chat when your turn. So we get to learn not only from our groups, but from each other. And I'm going to ask you to just have equal voice and accept non-closure. So if you're in a group of 3, that means you are listening 2/3 of the time and speaking 1/3 of the time. So I'm just going to ask you to monitor that for yourselves. And accepting non-closure means at the end of the 10 minutes, you might be like, we just got landed on something so good and the time is over. And I apologize that we don't have more time, but that is the way the cookie crumbles in these hour-long experiences. So just do the best with the time that you have. Really get in there and see if you can get into brainstorming as soon as possible. I'm just recreating your breakouts right now so that we will have 3 or 4 people in each group. And then I'm sending you off. I did paste the prompt in the chat there so that you have a reminder in case anything slips your mind. So you've got 10 minutes total. If you are confused about anything, you need help, feel free to click the help button or come back to the main room and ask for support. Or if you end up in a room by yourself, come back, I will move you and I'm monitoring the rooms to make sure you all have partners. Any questions before we hop out into these brainstorms with new friends? Okay, put your innovation caps on. How might we? Imagine how we could innovate the paradigm together. I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Hello, welcome back, friends. All right, if you took some notes, I'd love to see them in the chat. If you can also put at the top of it what element you chose, whether it was panels, fireside chats, or keynotes. That way we kind of have some context for your thoughts. Whoa, Romy, she's got the bullet point dialed. Fireside chats. See, you all are doing my homework for me because as I'm preparing this next conference, I'm like, we need to innovate these formats and I need ideas. So thank you. I'm going to pour over all of these notes. So good. Yes, ideas for fireside chats. Yeah, so as these come up, I encourage you to just kind of scan through them as well. And I believe you get access to the recording after, so I think you'll also be able to see the chat if you want to go back and revisit any of these brilliant ideas. Yes. So Romy and her partner had ideas about having like s'mores and something about a guitar. And I was thinking the exact same thing. And I was like, is that too cheesy? I have a very high bar for cheesy, but you know, I'm like, I don't know. Keynotes from Diana's group.
It really works.
It really works. You've done it. Okay. Good to know. Like, why not? Right? Like, again, these are just these like little playful moments, right? It doesn't change the content, but it just gives it a little bit of color and like some sugar in your mouth, which is always a good thing. Keynotes, yes. Avoid reading the speaker's bio. Engage audience every 5 minutes. Insert digital tools that allow for creativity. Tell a joke. Inject humor. Yes. For hybrids, invite active listening. Appeal to the senses and surprise people. I love that. Keynote, use a polling app. Get the audience to move and engage with their neighbors. Yes. How well the keynote speaker is prepped on limit repetition, right? So I like to do one other thing I highly recommend if you're a conference organizer. I do experience design consultations with every one of my presenters. They bring their agenda and their plan. We talk through it. I help them tie into the bigger themes, understand where they are in the program, customize it for the audience and the moment in time in which they are sharing the material and help them draw that red thread through and optimize for interactivity and engagement. So highly recommend that as a tool that will absolutely elevate the vibe and consistency in your conference. Yay, these are awesome. I love these. I'm going to go back and read through them all. I know we are almost out of time, so I appreciate all of your shares there, your brainstorming, your ideating, your visioning, your ideas, your passion for bringing conferences to a new level. I share that with you. I have a lot of rage at the current conference paradigm, and I don't use that word lightly. And I'm really excited to co-create a new model with you. And also, for those of you that might want a deeper dive, we're again doing a day-long event in person in Oakland, California. So if you're near the Bay Area or can get to the Bay Area, It's a day-long collaborative learning lab for seasoned and emerging conference organizers to shape the future of conferences. So it's in a month. It's September 16th. We have presenters from TED, from Great Place to Work, from the World Domination Summit, IMEX, which is the largest events conference, psychedelic science put on by the MAPS Institute. I've got somebody coming from Burning Man, from Summit Series. We have like amazing, very cool thinkers and very heart-centered people who are going to be very generously sharing and also connecting, obviously, with other participants like we did today and brainstorming the future of conferences. So very interactive, engaging programming that will help you think and act and create differently. So we have our early bird deadline is actually on Friday, which is in 2 days. So that helps you save $150 if you register by Friday. But I also created a special TechnoCon code. So TKC10, you get additional 10% off the early bird. And I wanted to personally send you, I have an ultimate engagement guide, which is a PDF, which will just give you lots of ideas for how to engage your group all day long. So this is the URL and the code, and I will drop that in the chat for you as well if you want to come. I'm also happy to stay on the line for a couple extra minutes if you want to talk about your event, any of the content that we shared, anything you have questions or want to chat about. I will be on the line. And last but not least, we'd just love to hear from you in the chat. What is your main takeaway from today? What is the thing that you learned, that you heard, that was useful, that you're going to take away? If you have that like one gem, you're like, that's the thing I want to remember. That's the thing that I want to do that will make a difference in my events, in the things that I'm designing, creating, or contributing to. So what is that thing that you want to remember? Yes, and Marco will be at Conference for Conferences as well. Create connection every 5 minutes. Building connection meeting with short, easy activities, and it's very important. Engaging early, yes. Reimagining the panel session, value of breakouts, interstitial moments. Flipping the traditional paradigm on its head, do something different, like applause at the front instead of the back. Taking away that it's helpful to pause work and share ideas with others in the industry. It's as important as the actual conference itself. Yay, I love these. Flipping the rules. Don't go back to the standard playbook. Yes, we are ditching the default. Really fun conference formats. Yes. Is that I have a tribe and I found my people. Thank you, Paul. Yay, thank you, Anne. I'm dropping this in the chat for you, the Conference for Conferences, which is Tuesday, September 16th in Oakland, if you want to come. I'm going to stay on the line to chat with you all. I want to thank Marco so much for having me and TechnoCon for hosting this. Is a great opportunity to meet some new people and share some new content. So I appreciate that. Thank you all for staying to the end, those of you who are still here, and have a beautiful rest of your week. And if you want to stay on the line, come hang out.
Thank you, Jenny. Great to have you. Great to see all the new faces to TechnoCon. Also, huge thanks to Mark, who organized everything behind the scenes.
Yes, Mark.
And looking forward to seeing you all at the conference as well.